What is beauty? And why are we so drawn to it? Today, we're going to explore these questions and also our relationship with beauty and much more. My name is Tanuj Nakra, and I'm an oculofacial plastic surgeon in academic and private practice here in Austin. And when I was a young kid in medical school, I was drawn to the intricacies of the mind. And specifically, I was very interested in psychology and psychiatry. I do have an artistic background, and that eventually led me to the creative field of plastic surgery. And my journey actually came full circle. Let me explain. So plastic surgery, at its base, is reconstruction of tissues and skin. But it's also still connected to the mind because the way we view ourselves in this world, it's intimately connected to our internal self-worth. And as a plastic surgeon, I have witnessed the power of how this can transform lives. In reconstructive surgery, for example, we see how reconstruction can help patients regain their confidence and their dignity when they've been cured of their cancer or their reconstruction after a trauma has been performed. Similarly, with children born with deformities, plastic surgery can offer a lifeline for giving them better function and a more normal appearance. But what about cosmetic surgery? In my experience, patients seek out cosmetic procedures when they're trying to feel more in tune with their self-view. And that brings us to the self-discrepancy theory. So the self-discrepancy theory suggests that if there's a gap between how we see ourselves and how we wish to be seen, that can cause discomfort. And the greater that gap, the more unhappy we might be with our own appearance. And when performed responsibly, cosmetic surgery can close this gap. In my clinics every week, I see patients a week or two after surgery who have increased confidence because they feel like their appearance now matches the way they want to be seen. Now, let's go back to the beginning. We had some interesting questions. Why are we so drawn to beauty? And the truth is, our attraction to beauty is actually genetic. There is a fascinating landmark article in 1987 published by Judith Langlaw here at UT Austin and her colleagues. And she studied newborn infants and their preferences for faces. And specifically what she did was she showed newborn infants pictures of faces that were either considered more attractive or less attractive. Can you guess which images the babies preferred to look at? So the results showed that babies prefer to stare at pictures of faces that are more attractive. This is called a preferential looking study, and it really is the basis of a lot of developmental psychology concepts that we use in our world of aesthetics and reconstructive plastic surgery. And what is really remarkable about the study is that these humans were so young, they had not yet been influenced by society. So that tells us that our attraction for beauty is hardwired genetically at birth. Now, evolution has shaped our perceptions of beauty over the millennia, but there are three areas of attraction that humans reliably across cultures and the globe are attracted to: symmetry, averageness, and gender traits. And why these three? Because these three are linked and tied to healthy genetics, the kind of healthy genetics we'd like to find in a potential mating partner. And there is a slew of research from the 1990s by some researchers at the University of New Mexico that studied these three areas of attraction in humans. And the first area is symmetry. And symmetry is found to be attractive because symmetry can connote healthiness, therefore better genetics. There's also another area of inquiry, the second area of attraction, which is averageness. And averageness can show us a mix of diverse features in these faces. For example, these are from the actual study. These are composites of images of numerous people all combined into one image. So it's become more of an average kind of face. And averageness can signal genetic diversity, which in turn may allow the observer of this beautiful face to believe that that individual will be able to handle disease better. And then finally, the third area is gender traits. And gender traits include things like larger jaws in men, more full lips in women, or larger eyes in women. And why are these found attractive? Because these signal strength and fertility. Now, these are all natural instincts of being human. And it's also natural for us to feel that our own appearance matters as well. And the problem lies when our own self-focus becomes obsessive. And that's where the conversation where I want to have with you today really begins. And so I stand here today as a cosmetic surgeon of 20 years, a father of 2 teens, and an individual that is very concerned with the mental health of our young adults today. And I'm here to tell you something that I find very profound that's happening in our society, which is that there's a fine line between a normal focus on our appearance and the dangerous pursuit of unattainable beauty. And in the modern era of social media, this line is becoming very blurry, and it's an important conversation that we need to have. When we look at our earth around us, when we look at our world that we live in, we can see that social media is shaping beauty standards these days. When we look at social media platforms, we'll see pictures of seemingly perfect people living seemingly perfect lives. But in reality, I think we probably all realize to some level that these images are highly curated, edited, and modified to showcase certain features on the faces or lifestyle. And what this does is it creates an unattainable ideal that we're trying to achieve when we see these influencers. Filters do more than just smooth skin. They modify genetic and gender features such as eyes, lips, jaw lines, and hair even. And this normalizes these unattainable beauty standards that are becoming a problem in our society today. And it's probably not a surprise to you that a lot of these influencers have had cosmetic procedures themselves. Sometimes, unfortunately, this work is really not very good. But I do see patients in my clinic routinely who are asking for this high eyebrow arched look, overfilled lips, and they call it the snatched look. To me, it's a concern because this is amplifying gender traits and it's normalizing some of these unusual, unnatural appearances. And in my opinion, this is also something where I feel that social media is really brainwashing us in this downward spiral of exaggerated vanity. This is not just a problem for women, but young men also are pressured by some of these forces to look a certain way, have a certain physique, and these pressures are immense and they're mounting a toll. Young adults are particularly vulnerable to these unrealistic ideals. And just as we're all aware of this term peer pressure, I've come up with this term called beauty pressure, which basically is this uncomfortable reality where influencers are affecting us to the point that we have a toxic comparison going on and we're trying to look like them and act like them even though what they're projecting may be unrealistic. This is backed by research. So young adults who spend a lot of time on social media have increased anxiety, depression, and low self-esteem. And in fact, our brains actually do not fully develop until we're in our late 20s, especially the prefrontal cortex, which oversees complex decision-making. And all of this pressure on our youth and our teens can create a really negative psychological situation that can lead to unhealthy self-view and perhaps even going down the pathway of cosmetic procedures before they're even really ready for it. Unfortunately, we're also seeing an epidemic of body dysmorphia in teens these days. And this is, in my opinion, fueled by social media. And body dysmorphia is when people have an unrealistic view of their own features and exaggerated perspectives that other people don't see. They see a bigger nose when it's really not that big. And this leads them down a progressive pathway psychologically where they can never be happy with their appearance. And this can even lead to them seeking out procedures where they'll never be satisfied because they have a psychological condition. And ultimately, these numerous procedures over their lifetime can lead to scarring, complications, eventually leading to depression and rarely suicide. Let me tell you a story of one of my patients. So Elizabeth is a 29-year-old woman who, at the age of 24, underwent a procedure to make her eyes look bigger. She didn't like the results of the procedure and ended up finding another surgeon to work on her eyes further. By the time I saw her, she had undergone 4 or 5 procedures, was still unhappy with her appearance, had scarring around her eyes, and really couldn't even close her eyes properly. She had become socially withdrawn, had quit the workforce, and really was clinically depressed. Unfortunately, because of the scarring, there's very little that I could do to help her other than to offer support, empathy, and counseling. But she was really in a negative state, feeling intense regret. This is a cautionary tale of what body dysmorphia can do and the dangers of seeking out cosmetic surgery too early in life. So, what can we do to combat this disturbing trend? And here's where I'm going from a negative narrative and I'm going to take you down a more positive message. And that fits into the theme of why we're here today at this TEDx event to talk about forward. I believe that we have the power to transform the way social media is impacting our youth and honestly ourselves. So 3 areas I want to talk about. Number 1, we have the power to strengthen self-worth for our youth by empowering them to focus on their internal characteristics as opposed to constantly focusing on their external physical appearance. We can help them focus on things that are real, such as character, their unique talents, and a positive personality. A second area we can make a difference is by focusing on media literacy. So just as students are taught to question research sources, we should also teach our young adults that they should be analyzing and critically analyzing social media sources to be able to identify unrealistic projections on social media so that we can stop this cycle of comparison that is leading down a negative pathway. And third, there's an important role for adults here, for parents, educators, and medical professionals. We can limit our social media exposure for our youth to less than 30 minutes, or at least make that suggestion, because this has been clinically shown to reduce anxiety, depression, and improve body satisfaction. We can also encourage schools to organize seminars where maybe a professional comes in to help educate and explain media literacy, again, to break this cycle and separate out external physical appearance and our own internal well-being. We can also create safe spaces in school to be able to discuss body image, again, to take the focus off superficial physical appearances and drive the focus more to things that really matter. And as medical professionals, we can practice more ethically by encouraging people who are seeking out procedures to really think twice if this is really the right procedure for them. And then one area that's severely underutilized is mental health resources. People are falling through the cracks or they're at risk of having psychiatric or psychological disorders, and this is a service we can offer our young adults. So I want to leave you with this. A focus on beauty can be normal, healthy, and actually improve our quality of life. But it should not define us. And if we are focused on unrealistic ideals that are projected in social media, it can only lead to disappointment, sadness, and maybe harm. So let's take a different path. Let's reject this obsession with unrealistic ideals and instead focus on our own inner attributes that contribute to real beauty. After all, confidence comes not from trying to achieve perfection, but for accepting ourselves as we really are. And now I want to speak directly to the youth in the audience and read to you a quote that I paraphrased from the wise Ralph Emerson. And this is actually 200 years ago. He said, "In a world that's constantly trying to make you something else, the greatest accomplishment is to be yourself." Thank you.